Ever found yourself avoiding a conversation, fearing the fallout or the awkwardness that might come from it? The reality is, we all hate having these difficult conversations, whether it be setting boundaries, giving feedback, or just trying to resolve a conflict. The good news is, however, that there are 5 practical things that you can do to make these conversations easier. And in this video, we're going to explore what those are. Now, the first step is preparation. Before you start the conversation, take a moment to plan and reflect. First of all, think about what's the purpose of the conversation. What is it that you're hoping to achieve by having it? Be very specific about these goals. Check your emotions. Are you calm? Are you reacting out of frustration? Take a deep breath, jot down your thoughts, or think about your goals and just clear your mind. Next, anticipate their reaction. Think about how they might respond. That way, you can be ready to handle the different emotions that come your way. When you're prepared, you're more likely to approach the conversation with clarity and confidence. The next stage is to create a safe place, a safe environment to have this conversation. And this is really, really important because you want to create an environment and a space where actually a meaningful dialogue takes place. So the first thing to do is to find a neutral space. Now, neutral is really important because in any of these conversations, people can feel almost like a power imbalance. If you're trying to have a difficult conversation with someone and it's in your protected space, that person is automatically going to feel on the defensive. Likewise, if you're having it in their protective space, you are automatically going to feel on the defensive. So one of the key things is about finding a neutral space to try and create a level playing field so there isn't this balance of power going on. It's also important that the space is somewhere where you're not going to be interrupted, because if you're being interrupted, you're not going to allow the conversation to develop and you're not going to have the space and the time to explore the different areas that you may need to. And finally, set the tone of the conversation. Start with a calm and respectful opening. Perhaps you might say something like, I'd like to talk to you about something that's been playing on my mind. Is now a good time to do that? By setting a positive, calm tone, by creating an environment and an atmosphere that's neutral, you create a space where both of you will be able to share openly and comfortably. The next element is about the language that you use. It's important that you use clear and compassionate language that isn't accusational. And one of the best ways to do this is by being specific. Focus on the issue and not the person. We use what we call I statements. So an I statement helps you express how you're feeling without attributing blame. For example, instead of saying you're forgetful, say, I've noticed that you seem to be misplacing things more often. The third element of this is about showing empathy. Acknowledge their feelings. Saying things like, I know this may be hard to hear, shows that you care about how they feel and you care about their perspective. And that is really important if you're wanting to have an effective conversation. The next element is what we call active listening. Now, we're often told that we've got 2 of these and 1 of these for a reason, and that we should be listening twice as much as we're talking. And the reality is that effective communication is a 2-way street. So we need to be listening as well as talking. If that's the case, the first thing we need to do then is to give them the space to be able to talk. Don't interrupt. Let them share their side. Don't fear the pauses either. Don't feel you have to fill every gap. Sometimes being quiet is the most effective way of communicating. The next part of active listening is about validating their feelings. Summarize what they've said. Reflect back to them. You might say something like, it sounds like you're feeling quite overwhelmed by everything at the moment. And that, I imagine, must be quite tough. The types of questions that we use can also be really important. And the use of open-ended questions can be really effective. Now, what do I mean by open-ended questions? Open-ended questions are the type of questions that allow people to expand, that encourage dialogue. They might be the who, the why, the where, the when. Closed questions are those that just require a yes-no response. So when we're having these difficult conversations, when we are trying to understand how people are feeling, trying to understand the reason for what's happening and what's going on, using these open-ended questions in a calm and non-accusatory way is really, really important. And the reality is, when you truly listen, you build rapport, you build confidence, and you build trust. The final element is about being solution-focused rather than blame-focused. The goal of any difficult conversation should always be about finding a solution, not about attributing blame. So it's important then that you stay flexible. Be open to compromise, but also know your limits, know your boundaries. Try and collaborate on solutions. Ask, how can we move forward on this? Or what do you think might be the best way to resolve this? What do you think the solution might be? And end positively. Summarize what you've discussed. Thank them for their openness and their input. For example, you might say something like, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about this and to be honest about how it's affecting you and how it's making you feel. By focusing on solutions, we can ensure that the conversation ends on a constructive and a positive note. So there we have it. Those are the 5 fundamental steps for having those difficult conversations. By utilising these steps, you'll be able to handle those tough conversations with care, confidence and respect. They might still be tough, but the outcome is likely to be better and you will feel less anxious and less awkward about having them. So I hope you found this video useful. If you have, please do like, subscribe and share below. If there's anything that you'd like me to talk about in future videos, then please let me know in the chat below. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much for watching.